I'm going to walk you through like the 3 most popular approaches first, how to approach location-based salaries. So you can do location-based salaries, you can do location-independent salaries, but there is also a few like hybrid models that I will cover as well. But the thing is, like, and I'm going to show in examples, in my opinion, like they all unfair to at least some people. So let's start with like the location-based salaries. This is the most popular approach right now and the most typical. And here's, for example, how Buffer makes it, right? So this is from like the Buffer page. They have a very simple formula. Like they take your role and they take, your location to calculate your salary. So if you have like 2 people doing the same jobs, like 2 people in HR doing the same job, if they live in different countries, they will have different salaries. And the way Buffer does this, like they have like 4 brackets, and basically, depending on the country, you will be placed in like one of the brackets, and the brackets determines like your final salary. And those brackets, if I remember correctly, is like very high cost of living, cities like San Francisco and LA, like high cost of living, moderate, and like low cost of living. And the low cost of living salaries will be like 70% of the high cost of living salaries. So this is how they approach this. Let's think how this is unfair. And if you have any international employees or contractors, you probably heard this. So this is like a real quote from like a real person that I heard multiple times. Is like, hey, I am an engineer in Argentina, and there is like this another engineer in San Francisco. We're doing exactly the same job, so why I'm like paying half of what other person makes? So in this case, like this person thinks they treated unfairly. And in the past, like one of the companies we've been working in the past was like a talent marketplace for engineers in like emerging markets. And I remember like we made this survey when like we asked people about fairness of salaries, and 99.9% because percent of people, they've been really not happy with like location-based salaries. And again, they all been coming from like low cost of living countries, but they've been like very vocal. This is not fair. This is not the right approach. And there was like a very heated discussion. So this is what you can expect from your team members in other countries. But there is a different canon of fairness as well. Many companies like have this policy that like if you decide to move to like a city with different cost of living, they're going to decrease your salary anyway. And this may be unfair. So imagine like someone from, like in this case, like someone from HR living in New York and they want to move to Maine, for example, which has like a different cost of living. So their argument will be like, hey, I'm doing exactly the same job I've been doing for the previous 3 years. We've been working remotely. So there's like completely no change for you and the company, but you're cutting my salary by 20% or something. So this also like can be unfair, for people who want to move to different cities. Aside now, I know that like a lot of companies have policy like this, but I know a lot of companies that actually have been faced with this, right? They actually had an employee moving to a different state or a different country. And most of the people I know, they made an exception, right? So even if the policy like, hey, we're not going to decrease the salary, we're going to decrease your salary, when they actually had to do this, they made an exception because they didn't want to like decrease someone's salary, which can result in like a different issue because now if you have another employee in like Maine, they will be like, hey, we're the same city, why this person earns more? Because they moved from New York, we're still doing the same job, we're in the same location. That's really unfair. So you may want to be careful with this approach. Different thing I heard from some of the employees is like fixed bonus. So imagine you have a sign-up bonus, right? Like if someone joins the company, you want to give them like $2,000 just as a signing bonus. The feedback you may hear from like your employees, for example, United States, will be like, hey, this person from like this low cost of living country, they just receive a bonus equal to like a 1 month of salary, and I receive like a bonus equal to like 20% of my salary. And it's $2,000 here and there, but like they like have like a different approach to this because it's just a smaller portion of the salary. The solution could be to have like location dependent bonuses, but to be honest, I don't know any company that does something like this. So that's the first model. The complete opposite model is like location independent salaries. So this is, for example, what Basecamp does. Basecamp believes that like every single person should have exactly the same salary regardless of the location. And in case of Basecamp, they all have like a San Francisco salaries, and it's like top 10%. Because Basecamp believes like two people doing the same job should always earn the same money because they give the same value to the company. And I think many people like understand like this unfairness with like this model, right? But what's unfairness with like the Basecamp model? And the unfairness can come from like your team living in cost of living cities. And this is like a real case. This is something when I heard from like engineer from San Francisco is like, hey, like we're doing the same job as this person in Romania. And I'm like, I can only afford like a small apartment, but this person is actually like building a, like a big complex and like, renting like 9 apartments. And that's a true thing. This is like I know this engineer in Romania actually. They basically building buildings. They earning so much money that like they building buildings for rent. And many people doesn't have any issue with this, right? That's completely fine. But you will like you may hear from like some employees that they will have very big problem to be okay with like doing the same job and having completely different lifestyle, right? Because like, I don't know, this other person in different countries, they may have like a big house and they, like they going on holidays, like, 6 times a year and then so on and so on. And this may be a problem for the people, even if like their salary can be high. So that's like one of the unfairness that you may experience. The other problem with like the salaries being location independent are golden handcuffs. Imagine a company like Basecamp. Let's say they want to hire like an entry-level accountant, like someone who just finished university, and they're doing this in a country like Portugal, for example. Because you compensate everyone like San Francisco rates, this person in Portugal is going to make like 3-4 times more than like an average salary in this country. So this will be like someone in the United States, like earning like 250K after the university. And this creates like a small problem because we still don't have like that many companies like having this approach to salaries. So it's like very hard for this like entry-level person like to find like a similar job with like similar compensation structure, which makes like them, even if they're unhappy with the job, even if they like really hate working for like this company, they still going to do everything to keep this job because like the difference in the salary is like, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 times more what they can get if like they leave the company. So this is what we call like golden handcuffs. Like people want to leave the job, but like they really can because they're earning so much money. Another like this like small issue, and this is mostly for like companies with like investors, but this is of course more expensive model, and like something you may hear from like your investors from time to time is like, hey, why do you pay like like your team that much money? Like if you could do a cost of living adjustment like everyone does, and like save a lot of money, or like hire a bigger team. I wouldn't worry about this that much, but again, this is something you may hear from like some of the investors. It's interesting, like if you would suggest that like you're going to move the whole team to San Francisco and like pay the same salaries, like those investors will probably be okay with this, even if like the same cost and this is the same team. So that's just interesting thing you may notice. There is a third model, and I just grew them by hybrid models because there's like a different approaches. But basically, hybrid model means like that you do location based for some employees, and for some of them you don't. One that's popular is like role dependent. So basically, the idea is like you benchmark all your engineers for like one markets, but you benchmark all your salespeople for like the market rates, right? So like then you end up with a situation when like all your engineers, they earn the same money regardless of location. So like the engineer in Brazil is going to earn exactly the same as engineer in San Francisco. But the sales team will be benchmarked not for San Francisco, but will be benchmarked for like a different market. Or like support team is like benchmarked for like Brazil, for example. So it is location dependent still, but it's like more like the department or like role level. It can be unfair as well, right? Because you can have like a support team like earning like 10 times less than like the sales team, for example. So this is also unfair. Like that's not like the golden solution. Another approach is like have location-based salaries for everyone in the company except sales team. So because often like the sales team, like they have a commission-based salaries, and commission can be paid on like the percentage of the account closed, right? So in this case, like you can be totally okay to pay, I don't know, like 20% of like the new contracts to your sales team, regardless if like they base in India or if they base in US, right? So in those companies, like everyone is like still location based, but like sales team is like an exception. Like the sales team is like not location based. Another popular approach is like to have a different comp structure for executive team. Basically, it's like you have like one system for like all your employees, but for executive team, you have different approach to compensation.